Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek.
We should record pretty much everything we say beforehand, because now nobody's ever going to hear all the crazy stuff I said that was probably super offensive.
It probably was. So, as you can tell, thank you for listening to Altered Geek. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and joining me in this adventure into the weird and wacky of Altered Geek is Mike the Birdman Dodd and Alex from This Week in Geek.
We have returned from lands unknown and podcasts unknown. This is my first show back in a couple of weeks.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, it's kind of nice not to have the world kicking me in the face for a while. It's been brutal, guys.
You need a friend, and you know what? Aquaman is a friend to all the animals.
He is. He talks to dolphins and fish and sharks alike.
So, does he talk to toy fish, though? You know, because you were just saying you needed a friend, so you got a friend in me.
I know he talks, or at least praises Tom Brady, but that's pretty much it. I think that's all I know.
So he likes all the Detroit teams, and he thinks Boston teams suck. So
because they do, right? Like, what good has ever come from Boston or Massachusetts in general? Like anything?
John Cena,
Ben Affleck.
I mean, okay. Anything that doesn't smell or is terrible in general. Has anything good come from there?
Crab cakes? I don't know. Lobster rolls?
Accents?
Oh yeah, well, accents to make fun of.
You have not lived until you've been told off by a Boston cabbie. I've had that experience.
I've been told off by Mike using the same accent, so.
He was like, go f*** myself. I'm thinking, wow, that was different, and I'm trying hard not to laugh at you.
It's actually more funny than being told off by French Canadians, because they just use like church terms. Swear words. It's all church terms. It's like, really? You're going to swear by quoting the Bible at me?
Go get him.
Anyway, so you guys just got back from, or at least Mike did, just got back from a particular film that's very controversial on the Twitter sphere right now.
Yep. Lot of hot takes on this one. I just got back from the first showing of Todd Phillips' Joker. That's right, the same guy who directed Old School and The Hangover.
See, that's what I was wondering. I thought it was the comedy director.
Well, what happened, and just to preface this before you guys get into it, he more or less said, because of all the attacks on comedians and anything that was, totally okay 10 years ago, he went for an ultra dark, very serious version of the Joker and a movie in general, just because he purposely made it so that it wasn't fun, was basically what he said in an interview, because of how everybody's quick to destroy anything that happens in the media now.
Well, he's kind of earned his chops now. Like I said, he may have started out doing all those kind of comedies, but then he produced A Star is Born. So Bradley Cooper helped him produce this movie. And the best way to describe Joker, without going into spoilers, it's Taxi Driver, but with the Joker. The Martin Scorsese influence is very apparent, and that's not a bad thing.
I've seen the shots comparing them side by side.
Yeah, this movie will have a lot of conversation in the mental health field for years to come. And this movie will be discussed for a very long time. It's a good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Joaquin Phoenix is great in it. A lot of the supporting cast are great. Robert De Niro is great. But the big question is this movie dangerous in a sense? And I'm going to say probably, and here's why. It does make sympathetic a guy who's been kicked and beaten, and basically those lonely incel type people, those weirdos, it does make them sympathetic. There's a point where you shouldn't be sympathetic with him, but you can kind of see where the dude's coming from. And that's not necessarily a good thing. There was things that were sent out by the Department of Defense in the United States and the New York Police Department has sent undercover officers to certain screenings because there was quote unquote credible threats on the dark web about shootings happening at Joker screenings. And if something doesn't happen in the next few weeks, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be, considering bad stuff happens all the time now.
So if something doesn't happen, you wouldn't be surprised, or if something happens, you wouldn't be surprised?
If something happens, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, okay.
Well, and the thing is the last 2 times we had something that had the Joker, whether it was the Heath Ledger film, where the guy went into the theater, and kind of went bananas dressed as the Joker.
That was 2012, and that was The Dark Knight Rises with the park. It was in Parkland, Colorado, I think.
The guy was all armored up.
Yep.
Which that theater said they're not showing it because that would be bad taste. And Warner Brothers was like, yeah, okay, we get that. So
yeah, for me, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's been on my mind all day when I've been seeing people talk about it. Okay, people are looking for a scapegoat. They're looking for these people are looking for a reason to do these things, and they're attaching themselves to even the most simple and stupid things. If it wasn't this film, it would be another film,
something else,
or something like this. This isn't the reason. I don't think that. I think bringing this to attention and all the critics saying this is going to cause a problem, that's what's enticing them. Had they said nothing, nothing would have happened.
Well, there is something a friend of mine, he works
and that
with,
I kind of agree with.
There's a friend of mine who works with a fairly large radio station in Toronto, and he's friends with a fairly prominent film critic. And the film critic had said it's probably the most dangerous movie he's ever seen, and it probably shouldn't have been made. That sounds pretty dramatic. I've seen it. That is pretty dramatic to say that. But I could see the right person in the wrong frame of mind seeing this. You know what I'm trying to say here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie if you take it as a movie, as you take this as literally as part of the Joker's whole thing is, I think from The Killing Joke, all it takes is one bad day, so to speak. Yeah. And I wonder if that will kind of give someone their one bad day, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. I hope I'm wrong.
You know what would give it? What should be causing more of these incel crazy? See, people always say, "Oh, they're loser people." It's not that. People that are mentally ill, people that are entitled to think that they expect, for whatever reason, they're like, "I deserve better." Well, you have to earn things. You don't get them for free. And
yeah, you have to go work for
there's also a harsh reality. Some people are just never going to be good enough for certain things. There's nothing in this world that says everything has to be equal and everybody deserves happiness. You have to earn it. And if there are going to be people that are just better than you at everything. And if you were coddled and told your whole life that you're special, and then you find out you're not, and then you feel entitled, that's on you. It's not the world's fault.
Well, it's funny how you mentioned. I was watching a George Carlin special on Amazon this past week, and he actually did talk on this. We're part of the helicopter generation right now, where parents are like, "You're special. Everybody's special." Blah 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 blah. And he made 2 points. At what age do you stop becoming special? And people are told you're no longer a loser. He's like, don't worry, little Jimmy, you're just the last winner. That doesn't work.
It doesn't.
I mean, honestly, and I'm agree to this, sometimes losing builds character. Mm-hmm. Adversity makes you a better person.
It's just like when you don't know how to do something and you get raked over the coals for it, for instance, and it's a learning experience.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great quote from Adventure Time. It's said by Jake the dog to Finn. And he says something along the lines of, you know what? Sucking at something is kind of the first step at getting good at something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try.
And here's the thing. And if you try and still fail, you know what? Move on to something else, because sometimes you're just never going to be good at that. Or like being told your whole life that you're special, and then You decide that, oh, I'm never going to bathe. I'm never going to work on my appearance. I'm never going to work on my manners, my personability. I'm never going to work on being outgoing. I'm going to be super introverted. How come no women or men like me? Well, because
there's no social skills.
Because you have no social skills. Exactly. And if you look at the people that are doing and perpetrating these and that, they're under 30. At the very most, they're under 35. It is the late 80s to early 90s and onward. Helicopter parent, no child left behind. Nobody's allowed to fail at school. Everybody's a winner. There's no spelling bees. You can't get an F.
And you fall upwards.
If you cry, we'll make it better by fixing it because we don't want you to cry. You can't be disciplined. You can't be. And I'm not advocating. You don't hit your kids. You don't do that. You don't do anything like that. But there has to be consequences for action.
Reasonable discipline.
And you have to be accountable for things that happen. You can't go around the world blaming everybody else, because, I would say that this movie shouldn't be the cause or even the reason that somebody would go crazy. If this was a just world, what would be making people go crazy and shooting people would be people that accidentally catch an episode of Young Sheldon, like something that inane and stupid and ridiculous and pointless and just horrifying. That should be what causes people to go crazy. It should be like snap and be like, I'm going to kill everybody in Hollywood. It shouldn't be a deep connected character. The reason that they might go crazy, they're not even getting the message. The message is, look at what this person is. Look at what they've done. Look at this. Oh, it's like life can get you down. Life can kick you. You know what? You know what you do? Maybe move out of Gotham. Move out of Gotham and go somewhere else. Oh, my life sucks. Everybody hates me in New York City. Blah blah. I'm getting beat up and I'm nobody. Okay, you're a nobody in New York City. Move to Kansas and become a somebody. Like, why do you have to lash out at the world because things don't go your way the way you want them to go? Like, there are opportunities all around the world to do things, to be a good person, to make a difference. So you're so sexually frustrated you can't get anybody. Okay, maybe that's not something you should focus on right now. Focus on becoming a better person.
There was something that I saw, and it's not related to Joker, but sort of side adjacent to that. Since we're talking about these incel types, there's this movement I saw. This was a conversation held on my Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't believe this.
We're not naming names, right?
Yeah, we are not naming names.
But
it was called
if it's on your Facebook, you can probably guess who the people are.
Well, it was weird because I've seen this term pop up on Twitter and Facebook, but I didn't know what it was until I actually watched one of the YouTube videos. And wow, that was a trip down a dark friggin' hole. It's called Men Going Their Own Way.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Man,
you need a hug.
Is this the person that just mysteriously stopped posting? After...
No, they've been posting recently, but then they posted some political stuff, and I said, you post that again, you get one warning, man.
Okay, so this is the person that you were like, I can't believe I saw something so incredibly stupid, my brain just broke, and they're like, anybody we know? And then it's like, yeah, you.
But
is it that person?
To get to the point of what I'm trying to say,
he's just avoiding it altogether.
Because it is.
To get to the focus point of what I'm trying to say, it's this weird anti-feminist mindset to the point where it's so regressive, where it's comical. Like, you people believe this?
Well, you know what? Pathetic losers can't blame the Jews. They can't blame this. They can't blame the regular scapegoats that have always been done for the last 200 years. They got to push it off onto somebody else. Who's left? Women. We got to hate women because it's the women's fault.
But say, I'm just reading and listening to this stuff, and say, man, no wonder people are getting radicalized. Like, that's nuts. People are
literally,
crazy.
It's like, it used to be the scapegoats were always, they would pick a minority, or they would pick, it's like World War II and everything. It's like, we picked the Jews as a scapegoat because, well, they were smart and owned a bunch of businesses and were good at making money, and we didn't like that, so we're just going to point it at them and say they're the cause of all of our problems. Okay, well then later on it was all the gay bashings that were happening in the 60s and 70s. And it's like, well, now they're a protected class. So and it's been part of the public zeitgeist now to be okay with that and be okay with everything. And you can't say anything bad about anybody. So you know what? We're just gonna say F it. And now it's all gonna be, we hate women because all these problems didn't happen in my dad's and grandfather's day when they did. Well, you know what happened back then? People were suppressed, oppressed, and you know what used to happen back then too? Men used to have heart attacks at like 40 and die on a regular basis because of the stress that they went through, let alone the like PTSD that women would get from the guys like being overbearing and like, shaking their empty glass to get people to fill it, that sort of stuff, like that ridiculous bullshit.
Yeah, like it's so weird just to see that this mindset has survived in the 2019.
And one thing is, it's a pushback. It's like they're pushing back so far, and they're like, women don't want me because they have power, so I don't want them to have power, so they have to want me. And that's all I can think of people. That's the only reason I can think of them doing it.
Well, I think too, a lot of people just have a screw loose nowadays and think that they're entitled for everything.
That's true too.
And because it kind of goes back to that coddling thing, that it kind of boils down to the garbage we were fed in the 90s. You know, like, sugar's good for you, milk's good for you. You know, you don't need to go outside.
Well, or the 80s campaigns of just say no to drugs. Oh wait, so your solution is just say no, even though that's never worked in the history of time.
Yeah, and so like it's all these stupid things that we were fed though, and that's why there's so much of an overload of everything now. Is everybody doesn't know how to cope with anything because we really weren't taught how to deal with anything. We were just fed, whatever they wanted on TV and whatever they wanted on commercials, and we were told in a certain way back then, and unless you had your head screwed on tight. That was the only way you were able to make it out of that. I mean, otherwise, you're one of these screwed up people that are kind of going around feeling entitled and damaged.
Sometime in the 80s, like it's people want to blame a political thing like Reagan or that. It's not. Sometime in the 80s, sometime in the early 80s, it became not okay to be individualistic. It was not okay to have independent thought. To teach each kid learns at a different pace, or have a parent, make sure that a kid is doing well in school. When schools drop the ball by not allowing kids to fail, or not, like, now they all have their individual education plans, but all that is a list of things that, this kid, let's be honest here, this kid is too dumb to learn this, so they're not going to learn this, and we're going to move them forward. Not, we're going to find a different way for them to learn the same thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they want to do the one size fits all factory model of everything for people, and people are so polarizingly different.
Exactly.
That you cannot do that. You have to. I mean, it's not like pumping out cars at General Motors where everyone's going to turn out basically the same with a different paint job.
Yeah.
You have different people that have different learning capabilities. Like, I'm a visual learner. If somebody shows me, like, if I'm not physically doing whatever it is, I'm not going to pick it up. It's like reading a math book that teaches me absolutely nothing. A teacher running their mouth telling me how to do it, absolutely nothing. If somebody shows me how to do it, I can pick it up.
Yeah.
And that's my method. Like, my brother is book smart. He can, through osmosis touch the book and know what it is. But it doesn't mean that he's got the street capability to do it. It just means that he knows what the process is. It doesn't mean that he can do it. Whereas I can do it, but I don't know what the process is. I just know how to do it.
Yeah, my brother's way was always he could read a book or hear an audio or hear the lecture and he would get it. For me, I had to do two ways. I had to see it done, and then I would have to do the tactile. I'd have to, physically do it 3 or 4 times. Once I got it perfect. And I could do it every single time after that. And it may not have been necessarily the method they wanted it done in the book.
Exactly.
But as long as you showed your work, if you had a good teacher, they would give you full marks. But now I hear things like, even if you don't show your work, they'll give you full marks because they're afraid of getting in trouble for not passing.
See, they don't do that really here in the U.S. And that's what they do is, like, I've seen my nephew and the work that he gets. And if he does it a different way and has a different method of getting to the same answer. And this even happened to my friend in college like 6-7 years ago. And if they had a different way of doing it, it was they would mark you down just because you didn't do it their way. Like, even though you had the correct answer, you didn't follow their structure of doing it, because they changed every few years.
Well, and
just
here now,
because that's government intervention. So
yeah, like from the time I was in high school, I came in, I started in '01, and like 9/11 happened like the second week of school. So everything changed then, the way the school policies were, but also I was there in a transitional time. By the time I left school, they had changed everything, like after grade 12, where you didn't have to do any assignments or work. If you had nothing handed in, you had until the last week of school to hand in every assignment, and and the teacher would have to mark it. And if and if you failed, if you got like a passing mark was 55%, but if you got 45% or higher, they would bump you to 55. And that was not like that when I started high school. It was you passed or you failed, and then you do it immediately. But they just got to the point here where they started mirroring what they were doing in the States, because they found a way to save money that way here, because budget cuts kept happening.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you see the kids that left high school 5 years now and 10 years or more after I left high school, and to be honest, they're dumb. And it's not dumb, like, it's not a capacity issue. A lot of these kids are smart enough to get it, but they've never had to work for it. So because they've never had to work for it, there's an entitlement issue. And then on top of that, they think that they have this moral high ground, the whole safe space thing. It's more of an issue in the universities in the States than it is here, but it does happen here. Openly mocking professors, campaigning to get their jobs taken away because they don't feel safe in the school. Like,
I think that's a load of baloney. Like the safe spaces thing. Like, and
you know what?
Okay, guys. All right, explain to me, in your own words, what do you define as a safe space?
I'll go first.
Just out of curiosity, yes.
So a safe space for me would be a safe that is, a space that is free of crime. You're free to walk around without the fear of a crime being perpetrated to you or around you that would put you in danger. Also, a safe space would be free to express who you are, but consider this. Free to express who you are means you can be gay, straight, whatever you want, whatever your orientation is. It also means that it's safe for everybody else. So if they don't maybe necessarily understand what you are, it doesn't mean you can lash out, attack, or demean or destroy the character of somebody else because they don't understand your personal position. It means that everybody is safe, not just a protected group.
Okay, Steve, What about you?
That's basically what I was going for, is because like I'm like, yeah, I don't care if somebody's gay, straight, whatever, it doesn't bother me as long as they're not trying to push it on me or, my kids or anything like that. Like, as long as they stay in their safe bubble, to themselves, that's fine. Cause like those same people don't want me, like, I'm Christian, so I don't, I get it. They don't necessarily want me, coming after them with a Bible either. So
exactly,
and so that's perfectly equal. If they approach me and are like, "Hey, what's the deal with this?" Then then that's an open ground to have a conversation. But to openly go after somebody because they have a different set of beliefs or a different set of, whatever it may be that they're comfortable with, I completely agree with Alex on that. Like, it should be completely safe for anybody to coexist and have open conversation.
So what I'm hearing is safe spaces should not be weaponized, correct?
Exactly.
Correct.
And that's what we're trying to get to.
Yes, and to add to that, safe space and freedom of speech and freedom of expression. What that means is that any expression is free as long as it's not inciting violence. So,
or
what
hate.
is
also protected.
The problem is hate. How do you define hate?
There's a very specific constitutional definition.
Well,
of hate.
the issue has become, at least in Canada, that hate speech is defined differently depending on the group you're a part of. There are certain
there needs to be broader definition.
There are certain groups right now that actually have protected rights that everybody else does not have.
Mm-hmm.
And without going further into like legal mumbo jumbo behind it, it's no longer equal free rights. It's people have elevated status, and it's a pendulum effect. It's gone a certain way beyond now, and it's like, well, now you have to walk on eggshells, because if you say something that is interpreted as hate, even if it's not, it can even be asking a question. They have zero tolerance policies on that before they even question you. So that is where you're having the balance has gone the wrong way. Now, when I say freedom of speech, I mean anything should be allowed to go. You know, you want to make a parody school group that parodies the a certain other group, you're allowed to do that. Or if you want, if the school, you have all these protests and they're like protesting, somebody who's like a very leftist person is protesting this certain thing. Well, then that also means that if you want to protest abortion, you should be allowed to too, because you should have the right to protest. You should have the right to speak any way you want, and you should not. It's like, oh, these people are bad. They're not allowed to have the same rights I'm allowed to have when it comes to protesting, and you're finding it's going too far in one direction now, the opposite way. So, I have some of the sickest sense of humor out there, and everything is fair game for me. I've always subscribed to the South Park method of comedy. It's like, if you're going to call out one group and make fun of it, you have to be able to call out everybody. It's all or nothing. So either we have truly open free speech, or we don't have any at all.
No, I agree.
That being said, again, you have to. The onus is on you. If what you're saying is with a malicious intent to purposely incite violence against a certain person or group, then it becomes criminal. If your protest is, let's say your protest is, I don't like transgender people. If you're somebody who's like so super against it and you have all your reasons, you have the right, and you should have the right, to be able to express that. But as soon as you say, we need to get rid of all of them, we have to do something now, that is where you've gone and stepped over the line of...
When you're trying to turn it into a personal army instead of just having an opinion.
If you're speaker's corner, I'm standing on the podium soapbox and you're saying, I don't like this, I need to have a debate, or I'm saying, I don't like this, here are my reasons I don't like this. You should be allowed to do that. You just have to know how to moderate yourself and what you're saying, so that you're not going to incite violence. And that's basically what in my mind, that a safe space is a safe space for all to say that without fear of repercussions.
Well, it's like Saturday Night Live. Technically, that should technically be banned because they're making fun of everybody.
Well, I have gotten to the point now where I can't watch Saturday Night Live. The entire thing is Trump.
It's too political.
It's so boring now. It's funny when you.
It hasn't been good for years.
Yeah, well,
it hasn't been good in the last 4 years.
I haven't really liked it in 15 or more. But to be honest, I flipped it on the other night, and I'm watching and I'm going, it's Trump joke after Trump joke after Trump. Every show does the same thing.
It's because it's hardcore. Like, everybody's on the attack Trump train, and it's gotten old.
Well, it's not funny. Also,
it's not like the Clinton jokes that they used to have. Those were at least
they have on there. I'm going to say in quotes, with the exception of Keenan.
Yeah, because Keenan's good.
Other than Keenan, there is not a single funny person on there. And I don't know if Lorne Michaels has just completely lost it, or if nobody wants to be on there anymore and they want to do their own thing.
Isn't Bill Hader still on there?
No, they all left. Like, all the old cast is gone. They left
like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, like, the only reason Keenan's still there is because I don't think there's anything else that he can actually.
Keenan is there because he checks off a couple boxes. He checks off minority. He checks off. We always have to have a big guy. Lorne has always had this thing where he has to have a big guy on cast. Ever since
and he's not all that big anymore. Like, he has lost.
No, but they're like they check off with Saturday Night Live. The last 20 years, they have a checklist of demographics they want to cover, and he covers a few. Plus, he's funny and he's still willing to be there. But everybody else,
they've all left.
If you look, not a single person on that cast, not a single one, will ever be famous for anything else. They're not good enough to spin off. And I looked at them like, why is this show on? Because now they're no longer catering to the wide audience they used to. They're pandering to a very niche, specific audience. And that's what all these late night shows are doing. I can barely watch any of them anymore because that's all it is. And they've politicized themselves to death, and they're all taking super ridiculous left stances. And the funny thing is, I'm a very left-leaning person. I'm a very liberal. I have aspects of myself that would be more conservative, because nobody is one specific thing. Everybody's on a spectrum, and everybody has little topics that they're one way or the other on. Mm-hmm. But it seems like television has gone so one extreme, and then talk radio has gone such to the other extreme. There's no in between anymore. The only thing we get in between is like maybe like streaming movies, and that's about it. Because there really is, other than podcasts, what do we have anymore that is truly moderate and not pandering to people? I would say we don't pander. We give our opinions, and they can be wildly on different fences, but we still respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now you're watching a cultural shift happen in real time. You're watching very much a culture war, and as you said, it's the pendulum. It swings both ways. Well, we're in for a big shift in the next couple years.
It's going to get politically probably more. There's going to be backlash leaning to the right, but what you're going to get is you're going to get this thing swinging so far, away from PC that we go full South Park, where they're completely people say they're libertarian. It's not that. It's that it's open season for anything. We're going to go sort of back to where it was in the mid to late 90s, but even more extreme because people are okay with swearing, and it's like the internet has opened the gates, and it's going to be insane in the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely agree with that statement. I was reading something earlier today. I can't find it. I thought I had it saved somewhere. Maybe I still do. But anyways, they were stating more or less that exact statement, in the fact that everything goes in a cycle, and we're kind of in that 80s, nothing's okay to talk about, you got to be super careful, and then like you said, it's going to go back to the 90s where everything is kind of all over the place, and it's already leaning that direction because people are getting so tired of the PC culture. And I noticed it a few years ago when it's kind of started kicking in, because I was saying some key things and people were like, I hate you, you're evil, blah, blah, blah. And it's my opinion. I'm not going to change it because you're whiny.
Good. Because you know what? I lost 50% of my Facebook friends about 7 years ago when somebody posted.
Be careful telling this story.
I'm going to tell it anyway.
Because it's intense.
It's not that intense. Is it intense for me? Probably not. But it's intense for you if you're listening to me.
Reader's Digest version.
Okay, so a teacher I really didn't like that was just a horrible teacher in the 4th grade found out that people said, oh, I didn't know she had passed away. And they're like, how did it happen? And, well, she was in a car crash and got her head chopped off. And I said, all I posted was, good, I'm glad she's dead. And you should have seen what happened to me. Because apparently she became a saint when she died. And I was like, no, I'm not changing my opinion because I didn't like her. I'm glad she's dead. People are now safer because of this. And I lost 200 people. I can't believe you. And these are people that didn't like her. But because publicly they had to pretend she was a saint. And so my response was, well, if you don't like my opinion, you don't like who I am, then you obviously don't know me that well. And I don't say that lightly about just anybody. It's like somebody has to be an abhorrent person that is not good in my eyes. I wouldn't just be somebody randomly passes away and I'm going to just tear them to shreds. This was a person that caused harm, more harm than good to anybody. And it was a good thing that she died in a horrible, horrible way. And I found it hilarious. And people did not like that at all.
So there.
Yeah, that's the Cliff Notes version.
So moving on to other things, since we were kind of
how the hell do you segue out of that?
Very carefully.
I have many stories like that.
Well, so anyways, I was doing some research, more or less. I was going through my Pixel phone because it gives me updates from Google on my whatever sites I go to, so for instance, I've got a bunch of Star Trek stuff and tech things that pop up all the time, and how Google and all this other garbage. So there was an article from Screen Rant, and I don't know if you guys noticed me posting this the other day. It has to do with writers paying attention to what they're actually writing and proofing what they write. Because you can clearly tell that, and this isn't just geek sites, this is regular mainstream media too, but geek sites are getting notoriously lazy with their articles, for a variety of reasons. Because one, they're trying to keep constantly in people's eyes, and two, because they have nothing better to post about at any given point, so they all recycle crap that everybody knows or has heard of, or trying to jump on the bandwagons because something's hot again, such as like Star Trek. So I've noticed like everybody's posting articles about it all of a sudden because Picard show, Data, Picard, and so I was having field day with this particular one because it said the Star Trek Data fan theory is confirmed or whatever. And I made the kind of snide remark on Twitter about might want to double check your writers. I know it's pop culture and ultimately doesn't matter, but some facts are wrong. For instance, on number 3, they stated that Data would eventually malfunction. And I'm going to read what they wrote, just see if you can find what's wrong with it in the sentence. And this is where he malfunctioned in one of the films. And it says, just like in any computer, viruses can wreak havoc on Data's delicate system. Just one can significantly damage his neural net, greatly limiting his ability to function. The systems can also overload with a power surge, blah, 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 when he activated his emotion chip in Star Trek Nemesis. And I'm like,
that's from
and they had
Generations.
That's a fact check.
Well, that's a fact check, but they're terrible at it. I've noticed a lot of sites are getting really sloppy with that. They had a picture of Genesis. That's the number one thing that threw me, because they had Nemesis in there. And then they continue and then they say Data, unaccustomed to what it felt like to suddenly feel emotions like any other member of the crew, didn't know how to control them. When he couldn't suppress them in situations when emotions were useless, he got into situations where they crippled him, such as when he cowered helplessly while Geordi got abducted by the Borg.
What the fuck?
And
this person was recounting the movies from memory.
Yeah, well,
and they remembered it wrong.
Not to mention, when they're talking about eventually how he'll fail, doesn't his internal battery and like a power system, isn't he supposed to be good for like not a million years, but isn't it a couple thousand years he's supposed to be good for?
Yeah, a couple of millennia. Yeah, well, and the thing is they not only named Nemesis in the emotion chip thing when it should have said generations, but they also said abducted by the Borg, and it was abducted by Soren and the Klingons. Like, how do you get those two things? Because those are they mixed 3 films into one film that had nothing to do with it, and which made me laugh.
And only one of those films is like good.
Yeah, well, First Contact is good, and Generations is good depending on what you're watching of it. Like, I liked the crossover bits with Picard and Kirk, just because it was a nice.
It would have been so much better if the movie had ended and Guinan given a speech about how time doesn't work the way you think it does, because they said that time doesn't work that. So in the current timeline, Kirk's dead, but in reality he's still technically in the Nexus.
Yeah, so that would have been a nice nod, kind of leaving it open that, hey, we could pull him anytime.
Yeah, because that would have solved what, like 30 years now of people arguing.
Oh yeah, for sure. So then they go on to another part of this, and this is number 10 on their list. And then they said, unlike with humans, Data's consciousness can be stored. All of his memories can be, and these are very written like somebody's robotic, like they don't even watch the show for the most part. Just in the way it's written.
This probably got assigned to some relatively low-level intern or someone who doesn't care.
Question 1 or 2. Is it just copy and pasted from other sites and put together into their own articles? Because I've seen that.
See that.
Two, is it somebody who's not a native English speaker working in India as like under a pseudonym? And I've seen this where they'll do that in India or China, and they're basically paid to write BS articles to then up their rankings on Alexa. This is like, it's ridiculous. Well,
and I'll get to that next, because that's a whole nother can of worms with the guest posting and everything else. So anyways, they say, because they're talking about Data and glimpses of him in Picard, and it says the series will explore Captain Picard's journey to boldly go where no one has gone before. 20 years after his time leading the Enterprise D, it remains to be seen if it's the real Data or something different. Well, 1, he's an admiral now, and 2, it's the Enterprise E.
How about How about
Leave it to Steve to be the only Star Trek nerd to be pissed off about this.
Well, no, the problem is these are the sites that people
They're
under
supposed
the
to
age,
be reputable.
well, people
But
under
so
the
yeah, Screen Rant should have a reputation, and
Yeah.
usually does for quality content.
well, people under
but
the age
this
of
is
30,
frankly
that's how they can.
inexcusable.
People that are like, there's two generations of millennials. I mentioned it's people born in the 80s and people born in the 90s. Even though technically we should be if you're 80s, you should be like Gen Y, like we're in between generations. But people born from 1990 onward that only know days where the internet existed believe stupid shit a lot easier because they didn't have to read it in magazines or papers or books. Anybody can write anything and they believe it. And it's just how it is. And how it gets believed more is these sites then proliferate their info by cross-referencing each other without actually giving an original source.
One of my favorite sites for this, and I have to call them out specifically because occasionally they'll get one or two things right, but I think it's more luck than anything else. It's a site called WeGotThisCovered.com. The amount of rumors these guys post, like one of the most ridiculous ones I've seen recently is Marvel wants John Bernthal and Charlie Cox to return as the Punisher and Daredevil in the MCU. Okay, that may be a possibility. But considering they want to bring back all the Marvel characters that existed on Netflix, Mike Coulter has a new show called Evil right now, and I don't know how it's doing, but let's presume that gets picked up for a full season. You're going to have to do some pretty fancy contract negotiating to get him out to do this. So I'm not seeing a Defenders type show happening. But the point I'm trying to make is sites that report on rumors, sites that don't cross-check, sites that don't fact-check are irritating as all shit. Like, I remember there was another site. It's called the Latino Report or something like that. And it used to get some Hollywood stuff right.
What is the other one? I hate this site too. It's that Umberto, I forget his name. It's not the Latino one, but it's I can't remember the name of it. Give me a second, I might have it actually.
Well, while you look that up, it's like it all
Heroic Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, but
they post
it all trails
garbage
back
stuff too.
To BuzzFeed. People always make fun of BuzzFeed and all that, but it's not just there.
Sometimes they get some stuff solid.
The worst
Not
thing
often.
to ever happen to the internet. The worst thing was, what is the comment system that a lot of sites use now for their blogs? Is
Discuss.
And how you have to scroll through multiple ads for fake lists to find the comment section. And then those ads, if you click on any of those ads for like, it'll be like, so-and-so from Full House, 14 people from Full House. You won't believe what number 14 looks like.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, or you click on it and you were inundated with more ads than a GeoCities website had. Mm-hmm. And the problem is people will look at that and go, that's real. And they'll believe anything that's posted in them, even if they have to click 500 times to get to where they want to read. Like I've gotten to the point now where I don't read any of those. The only things I will occasionally look at is when they're completely batshit insane and they've like, you can see they clearly photoshopped them to look like wrong. And it almost looks like something from like the Weekly World News. Like I'll look at that stuff, but like, let's be honest, 99% of the websites that exist now that are blog news sites are completely useless. They almost seem like they're made by bots, but half the time they're just made by people in India. Like there's entire computer farms where their job is to write things in broken English or pull like keywords from other sites, copy and paste random articles, slap them together. The biggest ones are the review sites. Here's a new phone out, and it's all I'm going to do is list the specs, and their review of the phone is reviewing how the specs look compared to other phones instead of actually reviewing the phone. It'll be like, this has this quad-core processor. A quad-core processor means you can do more than you can do on a dual-core. And I want to find whoever writes these articles. And okay, that would be my Joker movie. That's what would make me snap and go crazy and start murdering people.
So you want to hear something else? That the Heroic Hollywood site, they say, for instance, they'll have just garbage articles. Like 90% of their stuff on their site now is things like Jonah Hill becomes the Penguin for Robert Pattinson's The Batman movie, and awesome. And then you go into it, and it's a piece of fan art that somebody's done up to make him look like the character or whatever. And that's 90% of what their site is, but they have all these clickbaity articles that makes it sound like somebody's cast as something when they're not. And
those are
like,
irritating.
This is what 4chan should be getting on, and Anonymous should be getting on, is just destroying and nuking all these sites.
Yeah, so I mean, it's this kind of stuff that just irritates me when I see it, and that's why I've kind of gotten out of the pop culture bandwagon too, is because like 90% of it's just crap. Like it's not even like legit. It's all totally them just trying to make a buck or trying to just be relevant when there's no need for them to post all this miscellaneous garbage. Like there's no credibility anymore with any of it.
Thing is, not 99% of websites don't need to exist. If you want to have a personal blog and talk about whatever, have your opinion, cool. Have an opinion site. You don't need to have something that states that you're news. And you can't really be making a lot of money anymore when there's like 10 million other sites doing the exact same thing. There's probably 100 websites that are these blog type sites in the world that are making any real money. And the rest is
all
just
of them say make money with your blog and blah blah blah, which is why like I took all the ads off our site, because I was like, we're not making anything off these anyway, and they're getting free advertising. No. So like it's not going to be on there. Like I'm not going to promote something that's not going to pay me. So with all their crazy, oh, you'll make this amount. Yeah, if somebody clicks on it and you get enough, traffic to it, but everybody knows it's fake or uses ad blockers. So why would I do that? Like, so it even kind of goes into that whole thing with the guest posting, kind of into the whole thing you're talking about with people from just random locations. And like I mean, I've kind of used some of these services before just to see, but some of them get like kind of off the wall crazy, and I'm like, no. Or I get so many requests in my email for people like, oh, could you post this on your site? Could you, link this to your site? No, and I kind of look through. For one, like I get it, like it's an SEO thing for both parties, but at the same time, like I check all the links, I check all the articles, I make them, I look through if like for one, if you're supposed to represent a site and you can't say hello properly in an email, like I delete
ignore
it.
all of them.
If you send me an email and it's from a Gmail or anything other than the website address that you're supposedly representing, I delete it. If it's
anything from India or China, I throw it out unless I think it's going to be useful for hilarity's sake.
Well, I delete all of those anyway, but the funny thing is most people don't read those guest blogs for one, because they're just garbage posts, and then two, like a lot of them aren't really relevant to the audience, or they could be stolen, or they're not really from the niche per se. But I mean, like, I get like it's a whole thing of trying to get the SEO and cross marketing, but honestly, like they're just total waste of time, and so there's no reason to even have them.
Well, not to mention our sites are never going to get to the BuzzFeed, Kotaku levels. They're just not going to at this point. They would, if they were going to get to like the millions and millions of viewers like a day, they would have happened in the first couple of years. So they're not going to happen. So these are the bottom of the barrel, like bottom feeders trying to, get on your site, most likely trying to get access so they can steal your crap.
Yeah, I don't trust anything that comes into my Gmail saying, "Hi, I'd like to advertise." Nope. I want to guess. Nope.
Yeah, like if you want to send us stuff to review, sure.
In fact, one company,
and they have to have credentials.
One company recently tried to send me a hard drive. I'm pretty sure I just gave away my personal information because they're like, "Yeah, we sent it out." Well, where the hell is it?
Send you a hard drive, really?
Yeah.
Is it a reputable company?
I assumed it was. You sign us up for everything, so I just assumed.
Yeah. Okay. So did it come into the shared the feedback email?
No.
Went to
So
you.
Alex
It
needs
came
to
to me
do some
personally.
research.
So I was going to say, so we'll have to figure out, because if it's a real company, I'll be like, hey, where's our shit?
I asked them, like, where's a tracking number? And they've said nothing.
Oh, yeah, I've had
So,
that.
whatever. But still, yeah, I mean, it's weird. Just like, if you're not established by now, then you're not going to be.
Yeah, and I mean,
Pretty much.
you might be able to establish yourself as a brand, and you could maybe join a site or a new site that then breaks out big. But to be honest, it's weird to say this, but I'm willing to bet that 99% of the sites that are large are going to stay that way, and you have a less than a 1% chance that a new venture online will ever get big. Apps
Pretty
might get
much.
big, ideas might get big, but do we need any other website? Here's the thing: do we need any other website in the world for any topic at all, ever?
No.
Or do we have everything we could possibly ever want now?
I think
And
having a fresh voice every now and again might be a good idea.
Having a blog or a podcast is one thing. I'm saying, is there something so vital that isn't being served to us yet that we would need to fill? I don't think there is, unless there's new technologies or new things, like new products. They're really, like, we have every type of store you could ever want to imagine. We have every type of podcast you could ever want to imagine. It's all about tempering your expectations. Like, you can't go out there and just magically make money anymore. And they think that they can, so people chase it by making their websites these BS blog sites. But like, the websites look worse now than they ever have.
I agree to
There's
that.
more.
They're
things floating,
incredibly
more cluttered.
they're more cluttered.
Nobody follows any design standards anymore, and let alone, like, we've talked before about, following the W3C standards and everything. Not even that. Like, basic design theory is used by almost nobody anymore. Like, how can you look at your own website and go, that looks fine, when like it looks like crap? Like, and I mean, and I know that, like, we've gone through processes of changing websites, and we're probably going to want to change the layout too. Again, it's like everything is made so that your phone can scroll through and click on ads. And I feel like if somebody wanted to make it big nowadays, one way to do that is to be advertising like, you have no ads. You have nothing on your website that would give it clutter, and see if you can break it big.
Yeah, that's certainly another way of looking at it. So, another thing that's kind of funny out there, I was on Twitter again, because it's kind of where I live when I'm online. Somebody posted 4,000 years later, and we're back at the same language, and they showed hieroglyphics, and then below it has all the emojis.
Yeah, I mean,
which I thought was humorous.
I wrote a letter today, like a physical letter, and I actually decided not to do handwriting because I'm a lefty and that makes it more difficult. And not so much because the people I was writing to wouldn't be able to read it, but I was like, I started writing, like, I was just practicing. I'm like, wait a minute, what if I forget how to write something? Like, get the flow working. Because when was the last time you had to write anything other than your name in cursive?
I never use cursive because it's too hard to write. It hurts my hand. I print everything.
So do I.
But you know what I mean? Like I've written letters and I've done it occasionally, but like I actually bring into question, like, anybody under the age of 20, can they write at all? Can they even read handwriting?
I don't think they teach it, and cursive is fucking useless anyway.
The only thing it's good for is checks or signing paperwork and documents.
Cursive is only good in English if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed,
and you're writing your name,
it's completely useless. And it's been useless for... Okay, the only thing that cursive would ever really do good for you now, if you wrote it, is if you were writing some impassioned thing to somebody to really show how serious you were about, asking for something, or... like if you were going to write like a Make-A-Wish Foundation wish and you wanted to send it to your favorite hero or something, and they sent a personalized letter, that does show that you really care about something. But even then, it's getting to the point where nobody can even read it. So I almost feel like we're regressing to where we were 150 years ago, where almost nobody could read handwriting. To the point now where I think people have a hard time reading written text even when it's printed, if it's not in a font they recognize.
I can see that.
I definitely see that. But that's
It's all Comic Sans, man.
Yeah, I know.
Times New Roman.
Well, the thing is I actually switched years ago because I used to write. I don't even write lowercase anymore. And there's a reason behind that. When I worked at the pizza joint way back when the network started, they made a mistake on my payroll with my name and my address because I wrote in print. And I had to go through all kinds of trouble to get that fixed. But the thing is I ended up writing in all caps after that, because if I do that, there's no mistaking what I wrote.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but...
You were also from Michigan, so maybe the people you're working for couldn't read anyway.
Well, they could read. They could read cursive. They just,
Yeah, I'm just messing. But yeah, like, and it's not like trying to go down this big diatribe on like reading and writing skills or anything. But you're right. It's becoming a lost art of just people. I almost feel like people are being conditioned to read these bot style sites, and unless you're going to seek out like a university education, you're never going to encounter anything more than like 1% of the vocabulary that people used to have. Like there are many words and many phrases that aren't even used anymore. And at the same time, you could argue, don't use large words when you should be writing it so that everybody can understand it. But at the same time, you shouldn't write something so dumbed down that it loses its meaning. Well,
that's actually funny you say this, because when I was writing for what was it, commando.com, when I was writing their tech articles, because I think I wrote 38 or something before they went through some kind of a weird transition and no longer needed writers. But I used to write very sophisticated because one, I was having fun trying to see if they would tell me to change the wording, and two, because I know the meanings to several words that can sum up other multiple words. And when I write, I speak worse than I write. I can write much better than yes, more eloquently, more intelligently. And I just had fun with it, using these big words that, for the most part, unless, like, I didn't even know what some of them were. Like, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what they were, but I knew they fit with the sentence, with what I was trying to get across, because somewhere along the way I'd read it and I knew what the definition was at some point, but I couldn't command it on the spot. And so it was really funny getting to write those. And then I wrote for a couple other sites too, and did the same thing. And one of them actually told me, "Oh, you need to dumb it down." And I'm like, "What?" It was just humorous, because they couldn't understand what half of what I wrote was. So
yeah, like, and it all ties into a failing of, like, it's a failing of education, but also a failing. Ultimately, it's a failing of parenting in the last 35, 40 years. And not every parent, not every parent's like that, but the vast majority of parents have either gotten lazy, not cared, and you're having multiple generations now. It's like that movie Idiocracy. Each generation is getting, in the last 40 years, dumber than the last.
Yep.
As a whole.
We've got smartphones in our hands now. I mean, we don't even have to look anything up.
And I mean, I am that guy that would spend, like, in high school, like when we first got our dial-up internet, and I found out about Wikipedia, because I had like Encyclopedia Britannica and stuff on CD. But I was that kid, and I mean, I had friends, and I would go outside, ride my bikes, play video games, do whatever with friends. But when I had my internet time, other than finding porn, because that was always number one priority, find the porn, use it for about 8 minutes, we're done. Okay. This is before watching videos. This was like, I have to get a fake picture of Kate Mulgrew or something. Like it was like that those days where you waited like an hour for a picture to load. Once that was done, I would go to like Wikipedia and websites, and I would just read like, you know what? I'd like to learn about black holes today, and I would just
same
read
here.
for hours and hours. Like I don't know how many people fall down the rabbit hole of like the Wikipedia hole where you go to read about French toast, and by the time you're done, you've learned everything that ever happened about the Spanish Inquisition, and you're like, what happened? And now I know everything about that. And
See,
somewhere along those lines, you it was lost. Like because for us and our generation that got access to it, it was like, holy crap, I now have a library that I don't have to go to. I can look at it whenever I want and learn about anything I want. Problem is, when you've grown up always having that, you don't appreciate what you have because you don't have to learn it. There's no drive. There was nothing being restricted from people now that then became open to them. And that's what happened with us. Like there was no, even people a little older than us, there was no home video. Then it existed, and oh my God, the floodgates opened. And now I can watch anything. And then, but anything, in quotes, limited by whatever the video store had. And we were along for every step of the way as we slowly opened the floodgates, larger and larger and larger. And now that they're wide open, nobody takes advantage of it.
No, I agree. I mean, I remember my parents telling me, I mean, I had a computer even, and I would get grounded, and they were like, oh, you're going to use this thing called the encyclopedia and a dictionary. And then they're like, and you're going to use a typewriter. Which
your parents sucked.
Well, I got to use a word processor too, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I got like whatever happened to it might still happen, but like sitting in front of a typewriter or electric typewriter or word processor, and sitting there as like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old kid typing a bunch of random stuff and then going, "Hey mom, hey dad, did I write any words?" And then having them show you, "Oh well, here's a word," and then explaining to you what that was. That's how you learn to read. Like your parents would have to find ways that you found fun to learn.
What's funny about that is I actually learned to read by reading comic books and Star Trek chapter books, like those big, thick 350-page books, the hardcovers. Like that's what I learned. A lot of that stuff I learned how to read with, and then I used to write stories. I used to write fanfics on word processors, and then eventually on like Microsoft Word in school and everything.
Please tell me something survived.
I don't have anything from the word processor, but which is sad because I remember writing some things Star Trek related, and I can't remember for the life of me.
How many of them had you written into it?
Oh, just about everything. There's a little known secret with some of that too, because I always like to be the leader of everything. So I'm
sorry. One last thing. How many of them ended up with you and Troy in a bed together?
None.
It would have been none. Okay.
You weren't
a Troy person.
I was.
Okay.
No. Well, I don't remember. But honestly, like I
just busting you.
I know. But like no, I mean I wrote, like Commanding the Enterprise and like everything else. I think somewhere I do have a videotape of myself writing a story that I like reading one that I wrote somewhere.
Oh, that would be so cool.
I think I have an MP4 somewhere that my brother copied at one point. So I'll have to look that up.
But yeah, I feel like imagination is lost on a lot of people now.
Well, and that's the funny thing too is I do have, on the other hand, some Dragon Ball Z Mega Man X crossover fanfics that my friend and I used to write in high school or in middle school, and they're actually not half bad, but they're really short stories. And how they crossed over was hilarious.
We wrote ones in high school that were X-Files Sliders crossovers.
Interesting.
My God, you guys are
none of them
losers.
exist. I would like give my friend ideas.
Where were the girls in your guys' lives? Oh my God!
Let me clarify. It wasn't even so much that it was fiction. It was more like almost like a comic strips of it, like with drawings and everything. Friends that would do that. But a lot of it too was we would get together with our friends and we would make, we would get somebody's VHS camcorder or VHS-C camcorder and record a bunch of random crap. And this is like before Jackass and everything, but it would be some of those sorts of pranky stuff. But then it would be like a bunch of weird effects, or we'd make our own storylines. One of them was a guy. He was a genie, but he had no pants, and it was his pants are for the weak, and genies are powerful. Like, it's just random stupid stuff when you're 14.
That's funny.
Let me tell you, you guys are making me feel way better about my childhood right now.
Hey, that's, but I'll say this: I had every toy that I wanted.
I had every video game that I wanted. Which
I didn't have video
nice.
games until I bought them myself. So, but
I had
I had my own computer.
I had whatever toys and video games we could find at garage sales, and I was happy.
I got all the Ninja Turtle toys when they were new, and all the Batman toys and Star Trek toys. So I had everything. Very few of it survived. But no, I ended up writing, in addition to that stuff, I ended up writing a Transformers fanfic where I started creating my own like storyline. Basically, I deleted Beast Machines and
As it all should be.
Well, theoretically, the way I'd created this storyline, I could have erased it, or the storyline could have worked perfectly before, like, because it basically filled in the gap between Beast Wars and Beast Machines when Megatron got back to the planet. So it was really interesting, but I only made it like a chapter in, and it started getting really interesting, and then I lost wind on it because like I actually was working and I moved out, and so like a lot of that stuff kind of went by the wayside. I still have that somewhere, which I'll have to eventually like dig these out and then like send them so that we can all like laugh at them together on the podcast. But
it would be fun if we could recover. I've got to find like my old free webs and like Angel Fire websites that if they've been archived somewhere that we ran, because we would get together, like we would actually find fanfics of like ridiculous like sexualized fanfics of weird stuff on the internet in high school. We'd find them on other sites and purposely curate the most cringy, terrifying ones and put them in one place. And unfortunately, they're probably all gone because it would be stuff like fiction of X-Files crossed with something you wouldn't expect, like I don't know, Power Rangers, and it would just be, and it would, you start reading it and be like, oh, this is going to get deeply sexual, like almost right away, and yep, it's very graphic, and we would kill ourselves laughing in high school reading all this stuff because we realized that people were writing this because they thought it was good, and I feel like there's a whole part of the internet that doesn't exist anymore because of this. Oh, good Lord. Did you send us? Is that yours? Or is that what is that? Oh my goodness. Okay, so the Dark Dragon Ball, is that an entire fanfic site or is it oh, it is. Oh, okay, sorry. Here's how you know it's a good website from way back in the day. The site information is posted at the bottom left. The browser that was captured on is Internet Explorer, CPU speed 300 megahertz. Ooh, it's a Pentium 2, 56K modem, and the website, if you want to work in high resolution, is 1280 by 1024, or low resolution 800 by 600. Isn't that pretty good for what year is this? It's hella old. 2004. That's actually pretty advanced for 04, but yeah. Oh, see, this will be a topic for a show. We are going to find all the best fanfics, and we have to read them, and they have to be great. I am assuming there are tons of good Babylon 5 ones to be found. I'm assuming there's a lot of really good Earth 2 terrible ones. There's probably going to be ones involving like Batman the Animated Series. There's going to be great stuff. Is everybody else still here?
Yes. I'm just waiting for you guys to let me get a fucking word in edgewise. Well,
no, because you don't matter.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I spent my childhood chasing girls and playing video games while you guys were sitting around with your circle jerk about Dragon Ball Z.
And how'd that work out for you?
Pretty damn good, actually. Worked out great.
Fair enough. But then again, what else was there to do way up in the middle of butt F nowhere?
Girls.
Yeah, well,
Girls in video games.
if you call them girls, I guess.
Say, I don't think you've got a lot. I don't think you've got a
I-
lot of a leg to stand here, pal. I love you.
Neither do you right now.
This is quite true. I only have one of those.
I'm just messing with you. Oh my god, no, I'm just messing around. But it's. I
Did
mean,
Steve die?
I think he got sucked into the Wayback Machine reading this website.
Nope.
So
Nope, that's funny.
I was gonna no, Mike, I wasn't gonna say that they weren't girls. I was gonna say that can you measure girls or how hillbillyish were they up there? That's the question. Actually, I know some of those people now, so I shouldn't say that.
The ones that I went after were the non-hillbillies. So yeah, you basically you had to be able to operate a computer, and you had to like some nerd stuff.
Oh, of course.
So,
I was just fooling around with you, but I think we lost Steve for a bit because did you get sucked into reading the fanfics, or did you?
No, actually, I forgot to turn my mic back on. So I was talking to nobody.
You sent the link, and then I thought everybody else died, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read the website now.
Yeah, this was my website though. From back in 2004. Yes, that's why I sent it.
You had 56,000
so I was at the time,
unique visitors. That's pretty good for back then.
Yeah, back in the day. Well, I also had an army of people at my high school that went to my site because the fact it was a Dragon Ball Z site, and that was hot on Toonami at the time. And so everybody was like, "What do you got?" Blah blah blah. And I was like,
Dragon Ball Z was like later in the States than it was. Our Dragon Ball Z age was like 98 to 2001.
Yeah, we had the Ocean dub, and then they had the Funimation dub.
Well, see, the funny thing is we had there was if you wanted to see the titles of the or the different series, we had 3 different series that kind of started for our Dragon Ball Z Mega Man X crossover, which was under the novel listing. Those links were not archived, which is sad, but I have them on an external hard drive.
Last Breath won't load.
Well, that's not mine. That's somebody else's that submitted it. We did get quite a bit of listener submission stuff, or not listener, but visitor submission content. Yeah, so I mean, the site did pretty decent. I had a Transformers website too, which went under many different names, and then eventually became PredaconEmpire.com, which.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I found your guest book. The last few entries are all bots. It's all bullshit bots. But here, I'll read you something here. Let's see here. This is You were also, nobody wanted to put it in, but it says favorite DBGT character Nova Shinron. Favorite thing on our site, Big Bang Kamehameha, and comments. Your site is so cool. All caps.
Who put that?
Random name, which just says Butte, whatever. What else we got here? Apparently, your website's the most exciting thing in the universe. I would like to see Super Saiyan 6 Goku,
which technically now exists.
Yeah. Dragon Ball comments. Dragon Ball Z is life to me. You don't even know how much I play it. Like every day, I try to play some of it because sometimes we have to do something or something that like that. Oh, he's bad English. But I love Dragon Ball Z. It's part of my life. Favorite thing on our site, everything.
What's sad is like this actually went through like multiple name changes, like the website itself, and I did nothing except for change the art for like years. Because I was trying to get people.
Oh, no, somebody put their email address.
A lot of people did.
Tarragon. Email tarragon@net.hr. It's probably not real. Maybe. Dragon Ball Z character favorite Gogeta. Dragon Ball GT character Gogeta Super Saiyan 4. Favorite thing on our website, don't know yet, haven't been here long enough, basically.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, I've had a number of websites over the years. This one and like Predacon Empire were pretty much my main two for a while before Geekcast Radio. And then eventually it's funny because my Transformers site spun into an emulator site and a Dragon Ball Z site, which then later got folded all back on itself. And then, so yeah, super nerd here. I built like multiple websites. I could actually write, I think I have a document somewhere that I wrote like every website I've ever built or every version of every site that I've ever built, with title changes and everything else. Cause that was just kind of the nerd I was back then. I don't do that now cause I don't care, but no, I mean, I did that. And then a few years ago, I took, the Smithsonian, the edx.org, thing had a class on superheroes and creating your own universe and everything else. And so I created, a hero and a villain on that. And then I did it again the next semester that they had it. And I created another hero and a villain. And what I did is I connected them, made one in the future and one in the past. And then I actually, when I took my screenwriting class in college, I wrote the pilot episode as if it were a TV show and incorporated both the stories, as well as wrote all the other little BS stories that I had to write in between for the class. But I made them all incorporate themselves into the first pilot episode, which I actually have written somewhere. Like, I think it's on one of my sites.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry, but I was clicking. The links won't work. You know why the links won't work? Did you?
It's archive.org.
You coded the website in ASP.
No, I didn't.
The links are all ASP links. Like,
on which site?
Dark Dragon Ball.
For what? The guest book?
The guest email or the interact with DBX email.
The interact with the DBX email. That was ZZN. I don't know if you remember them, but they used to let you theme your own.
I'm pretty sure Microsoft ASP died. What was it, like 12, 13 years ago?
No, the ZZN, it was it was an email network that allowed you to put your own subdomain on it and create your own inbox. Like, it was the hot thing back then of, you have your own inbox for your website, custom emails and.
Okay. Yeah. Your website was a little newer because all the videos were .mpeg1. I was really, really hoping to see some .rmvb files, real media variable bit rates or .asf, just something so cringy with like 5 frames per second. But no, you had some MPEG-1 VCD quality stuff up there.
What's funny is, I snagged those from other people's sites.
Of course you did. Do you remember? Sorry, before Michael probably wants to talk again, but before he does, do you remember when the big thing when people started getting high-speed internet was to share music videos that people would tape using their like computer or VHS and transfer, and it would be like all MPEG-1 VCD quality, but they were like 200 or 300 megabytes a piece, and people were like, those are so huge. But before YouTube, the only way to watch a music video if you didn't have a VHS tape player was to download MPEG-1 files. I had like a 2 or 4 gigabyte hard drive just full of music videos.
That's funny. I used to do that. I had most of Beast Wars and Beast Machines downloaded, and Transformers Generation 1 that were done that way, or they were the real media files. One of the two.
Because you could shrink those guys down to like 50 megs. They looked horrendous, but they were. Oh no, actually, the RMVB files you could get decent quality. The problem was people used to be able to embed viruses in them, in those, and like real media died because of that. Same with all the old ASF videos. And like, when was the last time you saw a Windows WMV Windows Media video file? Unless it's porno, it's like old porn from like the old like Shiraza or Kazaa days. It's like, oh, for some reason that was like the porn site's choice was to like use all of the Windows Media files, which is completely useless now. I don't even know why they include it. So yes, Michael, how are you doing?
All right.
See, did you use the internet as much as we did?
Yeah, I would argue more actually, but not the way you guys did. I mean, I had an anime fan site all the way back in 1997.
Okay,
I
but did you
ran
have
for
high
about a year.
speed up north, or did you?
Yeah, we had it. You could only get it in Owen Sound, but out in the
Okay.
country where I lived, I used to rely on a 26.6 connection.
Oh, good
So
lord!
I downloaded movies, and it would take me. I would tie up the phone for
I
days
was gonna say you didn't have a second
downloading
phone line or
Merc.
anything.
Nope. So my parents, God bless them, they put up with it.
So they were wondering why haven't we had any calls? Like now it's a rarity to
Yep.
get a phone call.
Oh yeah, they're like, Michael, get off the internet. And I'm like, no, I'm downloading a movie.
And they're like,
Um,
no, I need the Pam and Tommy video. I can almost see what's happening on the boat.
I remember the first movie I downloaded was Neon Genesis Evangelion Death and Rebirth, which was not in English at that point, so it was completely subtitled. Yeah, I downloaded a lot of anime. I had a lot of anime in real player format. I used to go to anime
Yeah.
conventions and get them.
Other than music videos, anime was probably even more so than regular cartoons. Anime compressed really well using those old video codecs, or you get like flash videos versions of them. I mean, they would only be like 10 to 15 frames, so they'd lose something. But a lot of anime, like Ava, had a lot of scenes where there was not a lot of movement, so they really compressed super well. So you could get like almost TV quality back on like the old dial-up days.
Like the series I had Ava, Serial Experiments Lane, and what else did I have?
The Demon Beast Invasion or whatever it was called, all the hentai stuff.
No, actually, although I did buy a hentai
Oh, good God.
off of eBay back when they sold adult content. So
Oh, they
that was
don't now?
No, they haven't been able, they haven't. You can't buy adult
Oh.
videos on it. You haven't been able to do that since the early 2000s.
Because I remember it was like if you went on to the old sharing sites, like on the old Whereas sites, like it was basically anime and hentai. It was like everything because it was the only stuff that compressed super well. That like
or bootleg software.
Oh yeah. Tons of.
I was
programs.
notorious for that back in the day.
And like I'm only on a roll saying over the adult content, but like there was entire websites dedicated to just porn games, like DOS games.
Yep.
And
I
it was
remember
they were
that.
all they were basically text adventures that you only had to type with one hand. And I just remember like there was like a trading scene at my school where it's like, did you find what games did you find? It'd be like, I found this one, and like it'd be like a point and click adventure, and your reward would be naked pictures, and that's like all kids. It's all a 13-year-old boy wanted at the time.
My big thing back in high school was ROMs. So
Oh, yeah,
I remember my first
Emulators?
ROM. Yep, my first ROM / emulator was Nesticle. And,
I remember that.
Do you remember clicking on the about and it would say thanks shit man, and it was a pixel art of a guy eating poop?
Yep. Now, one of
I
my
never saw that.
one of my favorite memories of this is I was sitting in my girlfriend's kitchen. I used to bring my computer over to her house because I could use my 56K modem there. It was exciting. And I remember we were playing the emulators one night, and we were playing Bible Adventures. And I hadn't laughed so hard because we had just found Sean Baby, which had just blown up at the time. And he was telling us how you could you could be Moses, or sorry, you could play as someone throwing baby Moses into the River Nile. And we kept doing that, and we were just laughing hysterically
Check the group
at this
chat.
wisdom tree. Oh, God.
This one's a little different, and it just says bow to the fecal lord. And yeah, there's the button. The button. When instead of clicking OK, it has the Nesticle DOS, and then it has. Oh, they use Watcom
remember
C. Okay, Watcom was developed in my hometown here, at Watcom Waterloo Communications. That's what it was, right near the university. So that means that Nesticle was made by students at the University of Waterloo.
Well, the funny thing about that program, and I forgot about it until I saw the picture, was the flaming hand or the bloody hand like stump.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
When it would click on things, and I remember playing old NES games on it. believe it or not, I still have, and I'd have to dig it out somewhere, but I still have on some kind of a hard drive or burned CD, all of my emulation files.
Yep, same
Oh,
here.
man,
I've
yeah.
still got my stuff.
Okay, question for you. First of all, I love that. Like we have to post. I don't know how we're gonna post this. But we have to post a picture of the Nesticle. Like back in the day, when these emulators were like fairly underground and only like college programming nerds knew it, and then kids like us that were like
Searching for free games.
9 to 12 years old that discovered what ROMs were, like literally in like 99 or 98. They just like were brand new popping up. We would read these. This was the face. Like that was what, like there were so many in jokes, crass humor. Like now ROM, like when emulators come out, they're very clean, very professional looking. Back in the day, they were hacked together, weird. Like it's a picture of a pixel art of a really, really fat guy with razor sharp teeth, covered in poop around his lips, wearing a crown of thorns like Jesus, but instead of like thorns, it's like little sticks of dog shit. And then it just has like Nesticle DOS version number, Watcom 1997, and then the OK button just says "Thanks, shit man!" exclamation point, and the title of the window just says "Bow to the Fecal Lord." Like that's what every one of these were when you opened up a Whereas game and you'd install it. Remember the old installers with the cracks, and it would play all the random demo music, and they would have some of the most hilariously offensive things written in there or pop up on the screen, because they could get away with it, because it was just an in crowd that knew about it. But here's my question to you guys. Do you remember the very first time you discovered that ROMs existed? And do you remember what the very first game you downloaded was?
Yes. My first game that I downloaded was DuckTales. My first my first Whereas game was MechWarrior 3.
You couldn't just go to the garbage bin at anybody's house and pick up a copy of Duck Hunt for free?
No, DuckTales. No,
Oh, DuckTales. I thought you say Duck Hunt.
No, because you couldn't get the gun to work. So.
Okay. That's right. Because that's what I was thinking. I thought you said Duck Hunt. I'm like, no, why?
No, it was Duck Hunt, then Chip and Dale, then Mega Man 2.
And actually, yes, you could get the gun to work, because remember, we all use CRT monitors.
But the emulator didn't know how to understand it.
Oh yeah, you just went into settings, you could turn it on.
Oh, I thought that was a fairly recent development.
Hey, speaking of emulation, I actually have the entire archive on my hard drive.
well, there you go. And guess what? Well, nobody cares. Not Nintendo only cares if your website distributing it. They're not going to care about ROMs dumped 20 years ago for games that are now available for free online.
This is the funny thing is I built an entire website around it. And I was writing reviews for the games I was playing, because I was like, why not?
Dude,
they were like very minimalistic.
This goes back again. Like, statute of limitations are long gone from when I was doing this in 2002. But I built a website. I had built myself, because I was taking computer classes in grade 10. I had built myself a website. I had built myself a Pentium 2 server out of junk that I got from school when they were throwing out old computer parts. I basically filled my backpack with computer parts and built a computer using the school's discarded property. Built a Windows server, put Windows 2000 on there, made a web share, bought a domain, and directed it to my house, because we got high-speed internet, and everybody in the school could download my 40,000 ROMs that I had put on there. And it's like, back in the day, you get all the warnings, like $250,000 fee per infringement.
I remember that.
And I actually put on my website, I had made a calculator that every time I added a ROM, it would have a counter, and it would pop up on the front of the screen as you went to the website. I don't even remember what I called it anymore. It was like, like there was like EMU Paradise. I think I called it Alex's Game Shack or Alex's Garbage Bin or something like that. And I gave the link out to everybody in the school and like on school message boards and forums, and it would pop up on the screen, and it would say, I had a counter showing the amount of money that I would owe if I was ever caught by the FBI. And we were in like the trillions or whatever at that point. Because Canada was the gray area. Canada, until like 2007 or 8, didn't have any copyright laws regarding the sharing of digital copies of anything. It was only because of the movie industry. Remember when they brought it in, Mike, when they said, hey, you can no longer film in movie theaters and all that, and you could get prosecuted? Back in the day, it was a slap on the wrist. It wasn't a crime.
What? You can like filming like the movies themselves, or filming like,
if you film the movie and then distributed it from your own house on the internet, you could get hit with a fine that was not prosecutable by the FBI or any international. You couldn't even be sued by the Americans for it. So 99% of cam copies of movies that were being shared on Napster and everything came from like Ontario and Quebec. Now it's all Russia and China and everywhere else, usually Korean copies. But it wasn't even that we were sheltered. It's just that there was no law. It was completely not even gray area. There was nothing stipulating what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. So we would put, and there would always be these warnings about how the FBI is going to sue you internationally. Well, they weren't allowed back then to do that here. Now they can. But there was a lot of pushback. There's a big story behind that, but we're never really going to get into because it's boring. But at one point, like my website had a counter, and it's like, here it's like now stealing this much money's worth of games, and it was almost like we did it as a joke to like, like stick it to the man or whatever. But I remember a teacher coming by one day and going, what's that? I'm like, oh, I'm just connecting to my FTP server. And they're like, okay, what's there? I'm like, video games. And they're like, okay. Teachers not even knowing what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. Like I had teachers playing copies because I installed a web browser Java-based NES emulator. So I had teachers and staff at the school playing video games that I pirated in 2002.
That's all right. We had teachers at a skills center in high school that for the all A students, once a semester, if you had straight A's through the whole semester, they would have a LAN party day, and they would load a bootleg copy of Half-Life, Counter-Strike and stuff on all of these like 60 machines, and they'd have a pizza party and everything, and you'd play from like 9 a.m. till like 4 p.m. And that was your whole day on a Saturday. And we did that, and the teachers played, and we were, destroying each other in the game. And it was just what happened. Nobody cared. Like that was just back then.
We did that. We installed Quake 3 Arena on the network shared for the entire school board. But when they were doing, I don't know if you had it in the States, but there was a program called Deep Freeze. And what that would do is, you booted up a computer, brought it back to a default state. And the only thing that was not a constant was your own personal drive had data that could be changed. Well, when they were doing an update, we installed an executable that could be run over the network to the network share drive for the entire school board. So we had like 700 kids per day logging into the school computers during their classes and secretly playing Quake 3 Arena across the entire school board's network, which was running on like OC1 or OC3, like a good connection, like, I think it was like a gigabit connection that they were using back then for the school's backbone. So we were playing with kids all across the county. It's like we were nerdy ass kids. We had what else did we do? Installed horrific animated GIFs of disgusting, terrifying porn as the backgrounds to all the computers, so that even after it was deep freeze, when they would reboot the computer, the first thing that would pop up was like people pooping on each other, and that was the entire school board.
You guys are horrible.
We did horrible stuff that nowadays you would be like prosecuted, like you'd go to jail.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And we just did it, and like the IT guys would just be like, damn it, and they'd start laughing, and like the teachers would be like, that's so horrible, go see the principal. Like, and it was literally like a boys will be boys, girls will be girls, slap on the wrist. And now you could never do that stuff that we were doing.
No.
Yeah, so going back to the emulator side of things,
yes.
Where it was clean at one point, minus the nesticle.
Thanks, shit, man.
But So some of the first emulators I got were, granted, I had all of them, but I would say the Sega Genesis one and the Super Nintendo were probably some of the first ones I had, because there were games I wanted to play that I didn't have. Granted, I owned a Sega Genesis, but I didn't. This was like early 2000s, and so I had the emulator instead because then I could play it on the computer with a gamepad. Or I had this weird system down where I button mashed the keyboard because I didn't actually know how to play the games. Like I had a Dragon Ball Z game which had horrible graphics. The gameplay was all right, but you couldn't understand anything. Like you kind of had it, like if you're toggling through things, you couldn't read it because it was all in Chinese or Japanese or whatever it was. And so you just kind of had to play through. And then I had, of course, like the Power Rangers, the movie game, Altered Beast, the Sonic games, Streets of Rage, which was huge, in my opinion, for playing. And then I had, like, on the Super Nintendo side, I had all the Mega Man X games, and I played them all, and the various Mario games. And then I had an N64 emulator, so I could play Super Smash Brothers, which was cool. And then
oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, it's fine. And then I had like a Game Boy one where I had all of the Pokemon games and Mega Man Extremes and a couple of like Beast Wars games.
One of the coolest emulators I ever got, and this is when I was starting to fall out of PC stuff. I had a PlayStation emulator called Bleem.
I remember that.
I could buy the games to PlayStation. I didn't get a PlayStation until much later on, and then I got a PlayStation 2. There's a story behind that one I'll have to tell you sometime. But I got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I didn't have a keypad, or not a keypad, a gamepad. I had to play a Resident Evil game with just a keyboard, no mouse, because it had no mouse support. And those games were tank control-y, so you had to learn how to do stuff on a keyboard friggin' fast. I actually put up some of my best times beating Resident Evil 3's mercenary mode on a computer, and I never thought I would do that because I used to really like PC game. I used to play Rainbow Six Rogue Spear a lot. I played MechWarrior 3 like religiously. Star Wars Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. And stuff like that. I miss playing old computer games, but I started falling out around the time Rainbow Six Raven Shield came out. So that probably would have been about 2003, 2004, I think. Once I kind of decided it's too expensive to keep up with like PC gaming, I kind of fell out of it. And emulators became my best friend for a long time. And then I got a PlayStation. Then I was like, yeah, I'm going back to consoles. Screw PC gaming.
Yeah, like I would say, like I discovered it in grade. What would that have been? Grade 6, 97, 90. When the emulator scene was first really starting, and like the first translated games were starting to pop up. With, I don't even think half of those groups even exist anymore. I know some of them do in the hacking community, but I was at a friend's place who had dial-up, and what did I find? It was a Final Fantasy website that had. Like Final Fantasy, 2/4 for the Super Nintendo, and I went, oh, it's like this is the Japanese version, but translated into English. It's harder and has more stuff, and it has nudity, 16 pixels character nudity. And you're like, oh, and all it was like somebody in a bikini, right? But you're like, oh my god, Nintendo was censoring. Like the idea of censorship as a child never existed in my mind. I thought video games came out as they were intended, so. We downloaded, it was Final Fantasy 2/4, and then it was one of the first, if not the first translated Super Nintendo game, which was Final Fantasy 5. We downloaded that. Now, it was an early translation. It wasn't great. Now they've done better ones, and obviously there's been official releases. But I remember waiting like an hour to get the 3 or 4 megabyte file. And once it downloaded, you could fit, like, what we had to do, you had to zip up the file and split it between 2 or 3 floppies to get it home. Like when you could take like a RAR file and split it into 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Take it home, installed it, and like the wondrous discovery of playing something that literally 1% of people in North America might have even heard of. In 1998-99, I'm willing to bet that there is almost nobody at all in North America that even knew that there were more Final Fantasies. Like the only reason you would have is Final Fantasy VII came out, and you're like, "Where's 6, 5, 4, and 3, or 5, or 6, 5, and 4?" And then finding out that they had changed the names. That's it. But like the idea of playing that, like, otherwise you would have had to have purchased a imported copy, found a way to convert the cartridge to play, and then you wouldn't be able to play it in English. So like the emulator scene for us was like, we discovered games on a game by game basis, and then now if you want to, you can click a file and download a multiple gigabyte file with every single game from every console ever made in like 10 minutes.
Yep, that's for sure. So really the only other things going on, and that's pretty much it, is I got to be the voice actor recently. So
nice, dude.
Which was awesome. And I was originally cast as 2 characters, and I get to play 4 because we needed extra people to play characters, and they didn't have time to find actors. And I was like, I can change my voice. I'll do it. And it was hilarious. So,
well, good for you, man. You get to live the dream.
Good job.
Thanks. Yeah. So, yeah, one of them's just my voice because I had 584 lines and I didn't want to try and come up with a voice for that. So, and it's going to be recurring. So I figured I'd save all the special voices for limited engagement. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we get to do it again next month. So
good,
sweet, man. Yeah, and then that's for another season, right?
Yep, for another season. Each about every other month we do another season. So, or produce one anyway. So the one that I'm in won't come out until February.
I was going to say when it's out, you should pimp it out on all the platforms so we can get a listen to it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I get to actually argue with myself, which is awesome.
Nice.
They even poked fun at that because the director of the program was like, all right, well, I'll read your other, the other characters' lines, and then you read, your character's nicest, but I'm both, so I'll read both. So I did. So I was talking to myself during the scenes, and he was just like, okay. Because they don't get that very often, and I had to do that with the other 2 characters that I picked up too. I didn't realize that though when I picked them up. I really was just filling a role, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, they talk to each other," and I was like, "Oh." So, yeah, I get to invent new crazy ones for the next season. So who knows what I'll get. So, anyways, that about wraps this episode up. So, is there anything you guys would like to pimp out before we go?
Yes, actually, me and Alex, or at least me anyway, I'll be talking to the director, David Weiner, I believe is the name, of the In Search of Darkness documentary, which was kickstarted this past summer and is showing at, I think, Fantastic Fest, I want to say.
Yeah, there's a few
weekend.
of them there. It's a very comprehensive, I watched it today so we could be prepared, documentary on basically year by year all 80s horror films.
And it's probably, well, I can't say anything officially until the embargo lifts. Let's just say I was smiling. So beyond that...
like we can say it's very comprehensive.
Yes, we can say that. Just can't give an actual review or impressions. So look for that interview coming out next week sometime. And it should be pretty good. So beyond that, we'll have the usual Twig show on Monday / probably Tuesday this week, because there's a funeral going on this weekend, so we're not sure how the timing's going to work out. Yeah, so we got that going on. What else we got going on, Alex?
Depending on how things go, because we are going to be doing the interview, I may have an extra show out this week with some reviews. I'm not 100% sure yet, but it's been pretty busy with the 5-hour podcast that came out earlier this week. I've been pretty much every week doing something or going somewhere to get things. So I'm looking to we'll see what we record when we're together over the next few days.
Yeah.
but I believe we're recording. Are we doing all things Transformers tomorrow? Or is it another day?
I think it's another day.
It's not tomorrow. Okay.
No,
I couldn't tell. If
I don't do Fridays.
Okay, because then you might want to tell Blanchard, because I'm pretty sure he's expecting us to record tomorrow evening. And
It'll be a surprise.
yeah, sure, yay. And then I believe this coming Monday evening, I'm not sure when they get released, but we'll be doing the final episode of the Top 100 Pro Wrestler Countdown. I believe the new episode dropped like as of this recording, like during while we were recording. So listen to that because it's fun. I have a few funny stories. Some other people have funny stories in that episode, and it's been a fun process. I mean, when you get a bunch of wrestling fans talking, they can talk for a long time and it won't get boring.
Yeah, I would be bored.
Yeah. Well, fair enough to you. But you know, if we ever do the top 100 Transformers characters, have you guys done that?
No, that was in the plans too. But
oh, is it?
You know,
Okay. Well, if that ever happens, I know you'll be a part of that. I'm assuming, or top.
I would assume so.
Or do we
because Megatron would have to talk.
Have you done top 100 voices of Mel Blanc?
No,
because that would be interesting. Whittling it down to
Frank
just
Walker.
100. Yeah. How do you whittle it down to just 100 for those guys?
I wouldn't even know. Maybe the top 100 voice actors. That would be more feasible. That would be better.
But other than that, I think that's pretty much what we've got going on. I know there's some shows coming down the pipe. I just saw Rambo this past week. It was awesome, hilariously awesome and fun. I'm seeing Joker on Tuesday, and then was it Birdman and I are going to go see the Jane and Silent Bob movie a week after that.
Yep. So we'll probably do some kind of a talk on that. So
That'll be interesting.
it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
All right. So for Altered Geek, I suppose we have been.
Well, you've been Mike the Birdman Dodd, not Mark the Birdman Dodd.
Yes. I've been Mike the Birdman Dodd. I've been joined with Alex the producer.
And
of course,
Steve Megatron Phillips.
So
The Megatron's back.
Yeah, for now. More so because it just flowed out.
Oh, is he going to be back
yes.
until you record with Blanchard, and then it's going to be gone again just to piss him off?
That would be actually a really funny in joke. It disappears, until Blanchard's gone, and then. So, anyways, until next time, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.